Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session this afternoon. I would like to request any one of the students to give me a thumbs up if you can hear what I am saying, if I am audible, and then I could start with the topic for today. I'm also trying to wait for a few seconds. Let me also let you know the attendance code for today. The attendance code is 72859. I repeat, 72859, and it's already active for the last 5 minutes. 78259. Thank you, Tejasvi. Good afternoon, everyone. And I will start in a few seconds. I'm seeing a few people joining quickly. So this topic is going to be, today we're going to discuss the part 2 of the sustainability principles, which is actually the stage 3 of the sustainable principles that you study in year 3. And we will also start with a little bit of trying to remind ourselves what we did in the last class, which was the part 1 of this chapter. And then, of course, we'll go ahead and try and understand the second part, which is the implementation part of the sustainability principles. Right, okay. So let us start then, and just to check whether everything is going okay. Yes, perfectly all right. Just a check. Okay, great. Okay, let me go to the PowerPoint now. All right, so our topic for today, as I said, is going to be sustainability. We will be talking about sustainable development principles. Let me start by going through what we did in the last week. Is we tried to understand what is sustainability. We tried to understand what is sustainable development and how is sustainability and development connected to each other. And we tried to understand the components of sustainable development, where we understood that the society, that the person first, individuals, then the society, then the government, and then the corporates or the industry, which are the three main generators of development, are the main components of sustainable development also. Then we also try to understand the subdomains of sustainable development, like, for example, need. Number 2, we understood consumption. Number 3, we understood how we can reduce consumption, etc., etc. So now what we're going to talk predominantly about today is we're going to talk about corrective actions and how humanity as a whole, or you can say as a larger society, has decided to clamp down on the unsustainable methods that we have been using for centuries, more so in the last 1 century. So I'll just make you go through this the presentation that we saw last week. This was about understanding what is sustainable. This was also about understanding how we could have corrected the ecosystem, and then what are the components, for example, the use of resources, the direction of investments, the orientation of technological development, and institutional change, which has got a lot to do with the government and of the day and of times. Then we try to understand sustainable development, and we said, how people want to prosper, how the prosperity is very important, how development is very important. Then people to prosperity is impossible without peace. Then how international peace is very important, and then once you have peace, the countries, the nations become friends. That's how we need partnership between countries. And then if you are partners, all of you are friends, then you start thinking about the development on the planet level, on the higher level, on the bigger level, right? And then we also try to understand that in the 1987, the word sustainable development was chartered, was written, and then we said we should start thinking about the resources that we have. We should think about the production principles, about what we make, and then of course we should also look at our lifestyle. This was later on strengthened in 2019, 2017, when finally the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, were developed by United Nations. And once we understood that there are primarily three pillars of sustainability. One is the social pillar, one is the environmental pillar, and one is the economic pillar. Economic pillar is mostly to do with corporates, and it's got more to do with businesses, etc., etc. Then we also understood subdomains where it spoke about culture, technology, and politics. This is very interesting. Although we are talking about social, environmental, and economic rules, we are basically also talking about many sub domains. You are actually talking about 44 domains in totality. When we speak, we only speak about 17 goals, but at the same time, if you look at everything together, it comes to 44 goals, and then it also goes on the way to become 189 principles. So it's a huge document, a very big document, which has been made concise. So what I would suggest to all of you is, because you have time now, you should go through this United Nations Sustainability Charter in a whole, which was started in 2017, basically discussed in 15, finalized in 16, and then started in 2017. And what was the salient feature of this was that all the countries in the world, whether rich, poor, developed, underdeveloped, still developing, etc., etc., committed as a society that we will all work towards this sustainable development. How much we have done in the last 3 years, that is a big question that is already being discussed, and we need to, the first you can say the first barrier or the first target is 2030. That is the first target, and after that we will see as to how many people, how many nations, how many societies have really worked towards sustainable development. Okay, then we said why sustainability. We also understood why sustainability. So I'm not going to take up the topic completely. So I will just give you a simple example which we discussed on that day. We said there is a calculation which says that for a person, for a human, to survive for his whole lifetime, 2.1 global hectares of land. 2.1 global hectares of land are good enough for a human body, for a individual human to survive the whole life. 2.1 hectares. And when I'm saying 2.1 hectares, we are not talking about any other animals. We are not talking about any other insect. We are not talking about any other live object like fish, etc., etc. So we are only talking about humans. Now imagine in 2008, not today, it's been 12 years that we have, there was a survey again by United Nations fund, which said that humans have already started using as an individual 2.7 global hectares. That is 30% more than was supposed to be used by a human. Then you don't also leave anything for any other species that is living on this earth. So we are already using 30% more than we were supposed to use at an average. And now what happens is, where does this 30% extra come from? This 30% extra comes from, which is embedded in the goods and services of the world trade. So something that is not available, some food that is not available in my country, I have to import it from outside. I gave you a very simple example of back home of India, We produce 94% of the total consumption of the cumin, jeera, in the world, but we still import 4 more percent. That means we are consuming 98% of the total cumin that is produced anywhere in the world. Right? We could easily do lesser than this, because cumin is something which many of us use every day, every minute in the cuisine that we do here in India, in spices, in masalas, in gravies, in tadkas, etc., etc. Then the second place from where we get this shortfall of 30% is from the past. From the past, we are taking items from the past for our consumption today. What are those items? Fossil fuels, kerosene, petroleum, diesel, natural gas, CNG, LPG. All we are going to the center of the earth, and we are taking it out. We are doing exploration wherever oil is possible. We are taking it out, fighting over it, fighting wars over it, and we are using that, which was basically something that was built in the past, and it has come as a heritage to us, and we are trying to finish this heritage as early as possible, so that there is nothing left for the future. Then we are not satisfied with what we have today. We are not satisfied with what we are getting from the past. Now we are going to the future, and we are borrowing from the future. What are we borrowing from the future? We are borrowing the forests from the future. We are getting fish. We are overfishing. We are getting fish, so much fish from the sea which we cannot consume. Most of it is getting wasted. Or we are overfishing so much that there are many species of the fish and seafood which are getting extinct. We are overhunting so much that many of the species, thousands of species of animals and birds have already got extinct. So what is going to happen is, because of this imbalance, I gave you an example, I'm sure you must have heard, I gave you an example of that apple which comes from United States of America as regards to the apple that comes from Kashmir or that comes from Himachal in India, right? How much more travel, how much more effort, how much more fossil fuel it consumes coming from Napa Valley or from California to India than an apple that would come from Kashmir or Himachal, right? And then, of course, because it comes all the way from California, it is also costly, because it has spent a lot of money spent on its transportation, etc., etc. So these are very, very small things that we do not think before we buy such products. And I told you in the end, the impact of unsustainable practices. These are major stark and impacts. 800 million people go hungry in the world, and the numbers are growing because the governments have not been able to do enough. The public distribution systems are imbalanced. Some people are getting too much, some people are getting nothing. And this we can say in district level, we can say this in state levels, we can say this in national levels, we can say this in international levels. In the international levels also, there are many countries which are getting much, much more than many countries which are not getting anything, right? Because they don't have natural resources, because they don't have agricultural land, so they are left to the elements, right? Then comes the global warming, which has been created by mostly developing and developed nations who have been spewing CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, into the space, who have been cutting jungles ruthlessly, who have been consuming fossil fuels ruthlessly. So all these things are happening at the same time. Now, once we understand that all these things are happening at the same time, now what do we do? First of all, we understand what is the impact. So what is the impact? The environmental impact is the pollution of air, water, and soil. Nothing has been left. I spoke in the last class about the lakes in Bangalore, which are catching fire every year. Lakes in Bangalore, around Bangalore, which are getting frothy every year. Our rivers have started, becoming smaller and smaller. They are mostly becoming in the off season, when there is not too much of water. They are becoming drains, actually, with so much of muck. Then there is so much of pollution in the soil, where the soil is absorbing all those chemicals, dirt, etc. that is coming out of these factories, where unprocessed dirt, unprocessed chemicals, unprocessed inorganic substances are pumped into the earth. Then uncontrolled soil erosion, because we are cutting trees, we are clearing up places for growing things like palm oil, which is disastrous, things like sugarcane, things like other items which do not hold the soil together, because of which uncontrolled soil erosion is happening. You can see one of the examples here. One of the heads of a big hill, or you can say a mountain, has been completely denuded. And then chemical poisoning with pesticides. The earth is being poisoned every day, every minute, every second with chemical poisoning. Arsenic is commonplace in water these days. Many different types of pesticides that are thrown on the vegetables, on the fruits, are already building up in our bodies. There are so many different types of manures. There are so many different types of inorganic fertilizers that are being thrown into the fields, because people think that is going to give them better yields, etc. It obviously gives better yields for a few years, but then later on the land becomes barren. Then unscientific waste disposal. I think whatever I say about waste disposal is less. We all know around ourselves, especially the people who live in India, who live in cities, how much a big problem waste disposal is. We don't have any scientific methods of doing waste disposal. We are not aware. We do not understand before throwing. I was giving an example of a hand sanitizer bottle. A hand sanitizer bottle that you get has got 100 ml of hand sanitizer, but it is at the same time around 15 to 20 grams of plastic. So instead of buying a small hand sanitizer bottle which has got 100 ml, it would always be good to buy a refill which is not so much of plastic, which may be probably in a can, which you can slowly, steadily put into a small bottle, and then you can use the can sustainably for many years for carrying anything. So we need to immediately start thinking in a scientific way for disposing, for consumption, for trying to understand how to use each product that we use in our air, use in our life, starting from brushing our teeth in the morning till sleeping in the night, again brushing our teeth, use of water, use of many other products that we use every day. Now, the sustainability cycle. First, we will talk about, now look at this chart or this diagram. We know the three pillars now. We know social pillar, we know economic pillar, and we know environment. Social pillar is called the social life cycle assessment. Then life cycle costing and life cycle assessment of the environment. Now the question is, when you are a part of a society, let us do an assessment of the total life cycle of a human. As I was telling you, it was assumed, it was somehow calculated that 2.1 hectares of land is required for one person to survive in the whole life. So it's called SLCA. Here we do life cycle costing of a per person as far as economics is concerned, and then environment. What is the impact of the environment on the environment by a single person? And when all these three come together, they come together to form, a kind of a triangle. You can call it a small triangle, or you can call it this small flower, which we call sustainability. Now when all these three come together, then only we can say that whatever is being done is basically a culmination, a combination of social, economic, and environmental factors. They all come together in a positive way, and they follow a sustainable pathway for the humans. Now you all know that all the three components of the cycle are deeply embedded in each other. They cannot perform without any one of them, right? Society has to work with the industry, has to work with the corporates. Because in the end, what is corporate? A corporate also has come from the society. All the the people people who are working in the industries, the people who are decision makers in the industry have basically come from the society, right? And we are all basically to a large extent the you can say partners in the society. Then the society and the economics, the society and the corporate, the society and the industry has to work towards the third pillar, which is the environment pillar. If we don't work together, if we work with each other and then don't look at the environment, this disaster is already happening. It is going to become faster and faster. It is important that all the stakeholders of the society, such as the people, the governments, the corporates, etc., work in tandem with each other. The governments have to be conscious about responsible lawmaking, regulating supply and safeguarding all the sections of the society without an inequality and prejudice. This is exceptionally important in today's time, especially in the times of COVID, especially in the times post-COVID, maybe pre-COVID also this was true at the same time. What is the role of the governments? When governments are making laws, they need to be responsible lawmakers. They need to make laws which are in tandem with the sustainability principles. They should make laws which cannot be bypassed. Before giving approval for a factory, the government should ask many questions. What are you making? Where are you getting your products? What is your supply chain? How sustainable is your supply chain? How sustainable is your production? What will be your products? How will they be? Will there be a system by which you can take those products back? Or how will you be allowing your products to be sustainably recycled, etc., etc. Then regulating supply and safeguarding all the sections of society. The government has the biggest responsibility, especially if you take India as a country, as an example, as a big democracy. One of the biggest responsibilities of the government is the supply chain, okay, which we call the public distribution system, PDS, is one of the biggest responsibilities of government. That whatever is produced, you must have heard of a lot of stories that a lot of grain, lot of rice, lot of wheat is rotting in the government, in the storerooms, but it is not reaching people in time. It is not reaching people because there is not transportation available, there is not enough planning. So all that needs to be done, at the same time safeguarding that all the sections of the society are supplied without any inequality and without any prejudice. So this is a huge, humongous task for the government. This is a huge task, for the decision-making people. This is a huge task for the law-making people. If you don't have, I'm sure you must have heard of these. You must have heard of these programs by the government, which gives you 100 days of work every year. There are also programs which talk about public distribution system that everybody should get. I'm sure you must have known that many people during this COVID got some amount of rice, some amount of atta, some amount of maida, some amount of sugar through the public distribution system. So it should not be specific that only during emergencies the PDS is working well. It should also be working 365 days a year and year after year. Then we come to the corporates. The corporates have to be aware of their responsibility to the nations and to the environment and follow rules set by the government. So if there is a corporate which is international or which is Indian or which is a local corporate, it also needs, apart from its responsibility towards its staff, towards its shareholders, towards its market, it also has a massive responsibility towards the nation, towards the environment, and the rules that are set by the government. Not bypassing the rules, but following the rules, right? So there are many organizations which you can point your fingers on, which have got their own ethics committees, which have their own environmental committees, which are very strict on environmental factors, the people who are very strict on their ethical levels. They have become examples in the society when you talk about ethics, etc. So you need to have organisms which have internal checks, which is it's not necessary that somebody has to be behind you with a stick. They need to have internal systems, they need to have internal checks. I'm sure many of the companies, especially production companies like big factories, etc., have their own ethics committees, they have their own sustainability committees, they have their own environmental committees who look after these important issues as far as sustainability is concerned. The corporates need to maintain ethical and good manufacturing practices that are favorable to the environment. Now, if you remember, we said there have to be good manufacturing practices. Now, how do good manufacturing practices come? Good manufacturing practices come with development. They come with learning. They come with new technology. You had an old machine which was basically using up a lot of fuel. You have now invested some amount of money from your profits into new technology, which is where the consumption, your dependability and the consumption on the fuel has reduced. It has become more environment friendly. It has become more human friendly, and all these technology not only on the money or profitability sector, but also about improving the lot of your workers, improving the working conditions of your staff. So you need to upgrade yourself at the same time with the technologies which are related to profit making, which are related to less consumption. They should also be related to better environment for your staff and for the society at the same time. The corporates need to employ resources in research to innovate and research resources that are sustainable and renewable. So along with spending a lot of money and along with putting a lot of manpower in day-to-day production and double production and triple production and increasing productivity, etc., the corporates also have a responsibility of development. They also have they should have a research and development wing with every corporate, especially with a particular amount of products that they are making, so that they understand, that they know that the technologies that we are developing for the future are sustainable technologies, and they are those innovations which are going to help the person, the people working, the profitability of the company, the environment, the society, and the nation in the end. So that is a good socially responsible corporate. Then we come to another very important part of the pillar, a very important pillar of this industry, which we call society. Now the society, which is the consumer. So basically, the government makes laws, the corporates make products and services, and the society is the basic consumer of these services. Okay, the society is in need of these services. The society is in need of these products. The society is the final consumer of these products. So all the products that are made, all the services that are provided by the corporates are basically made as per, you can say, custom made for one person, for a group of persons, for a society as a whole, and as a nation. So you can have a product which has been, let us say, for example, let us take an example of a vehicle. Okay, a vehicle, any vehicle. So let's take example of some people with special needs who need a vehicle which will be very cheap, but at the same time it can take a person who is not physically viable, who has got special needs from one place to another person. Then the company makes a bicycle with a little bit of a motor, which a person who does not have, who is, you can say, incapable of driving, to make a special kind of a bicycle for it. For a person like us who are able-bodied, they make a different type of a bicycle. For a person who can afford better than a bicycle, they they produce an auto rickshaw, or you can say a scooty or a scooter or a bike or an auto rickshaw later on. Later on, they also produce cars. They produce bigger cars. They could produce even bigger cars. So you can understand whatever is the requirement of the society. It is the responsibility of the corporates or the responsibility of the industry to produce that product, and for the government to prepare rules, regulations, laws, etc., etc., for the regulation of those products. Now, it is very important for the society, which is the main consumer. It has to be aware as to what are they consuming, and how are they consuming, and how much are they consuming. Right? First, what are they consuming? Again, I come to that example of the apple, which comes from the Napa Valley or from the US or from any other country. You have to ask a question before you are picking up that apple. You know, I'm just giving an example. It could be a Fiji apple from Japan. It could be any apple for that matter. So you have to ask a question to yourself before you pick up that apple. Should I buy this apple? What is the impact of this apple on the environment? What is the impact of this apple on the farmer? My nearby farmer. If I am buying an apple which is coming from Napa Valley, it is an apple which is coming all the way from Napa Valley. The farmer at the other end may not be getting that much of profit. But there are people in between who are getting it, transporting it, storing it, etc., are dividing that profit. Instead of that, if I reach out to my nearest farmer, I will be able to directly interact with him. There will be nobody in between, and the farmer will be more than happy to get 10 paise extra than what he is getting from the middleman. And then, you know, he will be more than happy. He will be more than happy to, work with you in future and give you a better product. So this is also very important. Then another important thing is how are they consuming? Right? I told you what is society. Society is everybody around. There are people who do not have anything to eat, and there are people who are hoarding rice, who are hoarding wheat, who are hoarding grains, when other people are not getting anything from the public distribution system. They are manipulating the public distribution system in such a way that the person who is targeted at getting that food is not getting that food. So, and then at the same time, this question also ends up into how much are we consuming, right? Are we really consuming? We go to the market at the end of the week and buy 2 kgs of tomatoes, and at the end of the week, before you go again to the market, you look into your refrigerator and you say, see that 300, 400 grams of tomatoes are rotten. We have not used them all through the week. We just throw them and put the fresh tomatoes back into the refrigerator. So we also have to look at, are we consuming responsibly? So it is important. What are we consuming? How are we consuming? And how much are we consuming? The society has the responsibility to be informed consumers and citizens, right? You go to a shop and your shopkeeper is saying, "Sir, ये देखिए एक नया type का oil आया है market में." You pick it up, you start cooking with it. You don't realize that this oil, you know, is very unsustainable. Okay, it is oil. Let's say, for example, we all know about an oil which is used by a lot of different industries, like beauty industry and this industry and that industry, by a lot of industries, and it is basically the oil which is responsible for destruction of many habitats in Africa, many habitats in Latin America, etc., right? So it is very important to be aware. You need to be a very aware consumer. Whatever you are buying, you need to understand what you're buying. You know, as the Consumer Affairs Ministry of the government always tells you, you should be an aware consumer and an aware citizen. Before you produce something, before you buy something, before you consume something. Society is also a watchdog for the industry and government to make sure that the right questions are asked. It's not only about society's own responsibility. मैंने पानी कम खर्चा कर दिया, मैंने कम खर्चा किया, मैंने कंजम्पशन कम किया, मैंने बहुत साइकिल चलाया, अभी मेरे को किसी को और कुछ पूछने का जरूरत नहीं है. No, because you are a central part of the sustainability cycle, you are a part of the society, you have a right to ask questions. A new group of factories is coming up in your city and you are seeing that a lake is being filled up. You have a right to ask a question, right? Because it is not sustainable. Because the water table of your city is going down. You know, many cities in India, the water table is going down, so low that in a few years there will be no water. Right? So you need to ask questions. It's quite possible that that decision has been taken after a lot of thinking about the future good of the society. Right? Maybe you know, there is a very big plan behind that factory where a lot of people it will be a sustainability produced product, and a lot of people in the villages from around the villages will be employed. You know, there can be a lot of possibilities, but you will only know about those possibilities if you ask questions. A society is also responsible to be aware that the natural resources are limited and the most of them are not renewable and need to be preserved for the next generations. Right? Now, how is this possible? How will you tell people around you or yourself or your children or your parents or your family that the you know, joyride that you make in a car, suddenly one fine morning you say चलो घूम के आते हैं 200 किलोमीटर 300 किलोमीटर घूम के आते हैं, it is not worth it because you are spending so much of fossil fuel without any particular purpose, and this is a non-renewable source of energy. These 20 liters, 10 liters, 5 liters of fuel that you used for that visit or that travel, which was of no use, you know, has gone forever. It will never ever come again. It is a non-renewable source of energy. Now, how will you educate people around you? You will educate people around you only when you really make them literate. When people, you know, on the street are not burning tires, the people on the street are not burning, you know, too much of dry leaves, etc., etc., instead of composting them, which will give them a nice compost. Instead of them, they burn and it spoils the environment. So it will only come when the society is aware and it educates its partners, it educates the people. So what happened is, as I have been saying for the last 2 classes, that on 1st of January 2016, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are called SDGs, of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was adopted by the world leaders actually in September 2015, but then it came to force officially on 1st of January in 2016. So what we said over the next 15 years, these new goals that are universally applicable to all countries, we will mobilize efforts to end all forms of poverty, we will fight inequalities, we will tackle climate change while ensuring that no one is left behind. So 2030 tak, what we have to do is we have to follow all the sustainable goals, sustainable development goals of the United Nations, which are called SDGs 2030, and it has to be done by all the countries, all through the society, all through the nation. Everybody should be on the same line by 2030. It is a tall thing. Whether it is possible or not, whether we'll be able to do it or not, is a big question mark, but we have all committed ourselves to it. The SDGs are also known as global goals, which are built on the success of Millennium Development Goals. So we had Millennium Development Goals, which finished, that charter finished in 2000, and all these new goals were built on the Millennium Development Goals, right? which was which was aimed at ending all forms of poverty, right? In the last 100 years, 60 years, 70 years, since the Commonwealth, since the United Nations came into being, we have tried to fight all forms of poverty, and we have to a large extent succeeded. So the United Nations said, let us be optimistic and let us see that we can do exactly the same kind of work or better work. Now, the new goals are unique in that they call for action by all countries. As I told you, poor, rich, and middle income to promote prosperity while protecting the planet. So, in these new goals, in the earlier goals, it was only the big countries which had a lot of responsibility. In the new goals, every country, whether rich or poor or still developing or developed, everybody has the similar responsibility to promote prosperity and while at the same time protecting the planet. They recognize that ending poverty must go hand in hand with strategies that build economic growth and address a range of social needs, including education, health, social protection, job opportunities, while tackling climate change and environmental protection. So what we need to do is, we need to protect the environment. Whatever damage has been done, that needs to be reversed. We need to protect the environment for future, and at the same time we need to improve health, we need to improve education, we need to improve equality, we need to improve social protection, we need to increase job opportunities for people so that people can get richer, can become a little better, okay, in their life standards. This is for you the Sustainable Development Goals. If you look at them, I'm going to explain them very shortly in a few words here and there. The first one is called no poverty, the second is called zero hunger, third is called good health and well-being. You will be surprised, you know, there are goals in this which you would never think could be, you know, could have anything to do with the protection of the environment. Let's say, for example, quality education. Normally, if you have a fleeting glance, you will say, what has got quality education to do with protecting environment? It has, because people need to be educated. People need to understand what we are talking. Gender equality. A male is equal to a female. A boy is equal to a girl. A man is equal to a woman. Right? Clean water and sanitation. Basic requirement of a human. Affordable and clean energy. What do you mean by clean energy? Clean energy is something that does not increase your carbon footprint. Coal, wood, CNG, a little less maybe, petrol, diesel, they increase your carbon footprint. Decent work and economic growth, everybody gets a decent work. Can we close our eyes and be happy and think everybody in our country is getting decent work? When I say decent work, means something that a person has to do because of necessity, because of his need, dire needs. Industry, innovation and infrastructure, better industry, better innovations for better future and better infrastructure. Reduced inequalities. Inequalities in people to be reduced between men and women, between rich and poor, between countries and countries. Okay? Sustainable cities and communities. All the cities, all the townships, all the groups where people stay have to be sustainable. Responsible consumption and production. Like I said, because we are all a society, we should understand and know what we consume, how we consume, and how much we consume. Then number 13 is climate action. Number 14 is to protect life below water. Number 15 is to protect life on the land. Number 16 is peace, justice, and strong institutions. Peace, justice, and strong institutions in inverted commas. Partnerships for the goals. So when all this is done on community level, when all this is done on city level, When all is done on national level, then we all come together and start working for the sustainable development goals of the earth on the whole. Okay, so I have pretty much explained the preamble of these goals. I will take up the goals one by one. Number one, end poverty in all its forms. Number two, end hunger, achieve food security and improved nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Now this is all in one line. End hunger. For ending hunger, you need to improve production. For improving production, you need to have sustainable agriculture. By sustainable agriculture, you will end hunger, you will achieve food security for all, and you will improve nutrition of the people who don't have enough to eat. I'm sure you have all heard that because of the COVID, supply chains have gone down. NGOs have stopped getting money from people because people are not able to develop money. So a lot of NGOs are running, lot of international agencies are running out of cash. They cannot buy food. So if they can't buy food, how will they, provide food to the people who are malnutrition? Ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. Right? There is a lot of assurance on this age. Over all across the world, people have steadily started living healthier lives. Although tried to live healthier lives on the higher strata of the society and middle strata of the society. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education, promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. We should have societies where we have equal quality education for everybody, and we have to promote learning opportunities. Anybody should not feel that I am old, I cannot study. People in India, 70 years, 80 years, 60 years have started, doing graduation, etc. People have started learning. So there should be an environment where everybody, whenever he or she wants to study, wants to get more in knowledge, can easily go, and the system has to be such that they will be accepted. Achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls, specifically because there are circumstances in the world where women and girls are still not as empowered as they should be. Ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Many governments are trying to do that. Number 7 is ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy for all. Affordable, reliable and sustainable. So reliable because fossil fuels are going to go someday. Sustainable because if we continue burning fossil fuels like this, the environment is going for a toss. So we need to spend money, we need to spend energy, we need to spend a lot of human power to innovate and to get new ways of getting developing modern and reliable and affordable sources of energy, like maybe solar energy or water energy or wind energy, etc., etc. To promote, number 8 is promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. Now this is very important to understand. To promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth. The problem is rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. So that is not what SDGs mean. SDGs mean that we have to promote a sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth which can take everybody along with it, and that will also ensure that everybody gets decent work. We have to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. I have been talking about innovation again and again. So you have to build infrastructure that is resilient, that can face natural calamities, that can face human-made calamities, that can come back, spring back faster. We should promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization. The industries that come should be good for the society. They should be good for the country. They should be good for the world. And we should always encourage innovations. We should reduce inequality within and among countries. Within the countries, inequalities have to be reduced, and among the countries, inequality has to be increased. Because what is happening, many countries, as we know, are really going down because their economies are bad. their leaders are bad, the people are not being looked after, there are not good public distribution systems in those countries, because of which people are going through very bad stages of malnutrition. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So the cities that we're making, these human settlements that we're making, should be innovative. They should be better than before. They should be well planned. They should be planned in such a way that you know exactly, how much waste is going to come from this city, and how do we manage the waste? How do we manage water? How do we manage power? How do we manage other important sorry, how will we manage other important resources? Then ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns, right? We should have such consumption patterns that we are in tandem with the supply and production, right? The supply should be such that there is no shortfall in the consumption, and there is something that is left for the stores for the rainy day. It should not happen that the production is so much and the consumption is so low that there is an immense wastage of resources. To take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts is goal number 13. Goal number 14 is conserve and sustainably use of oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. So, as I was saying, life below water, it is to conserve and sustainable use of oceans. Don't overfish, don't overhunt, don't take one whole shark and just remove the fins and throw the shark back into the water. For just 2 kgs, 3 kgs of shark fin, you're taking a shark of around 200 kgs and killing it just because you want 4 kgs of fins, right? And overproduction and overfishing, etc., should be avoided. Number 15 is life on land, which means protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. This is a very, very big subject. This subject, goal number 15, can be discussed for 3 hours, 4 hours without any end. I will just explain. You have to manage your forests. You have to combat cutting of forests to a large extent, which cause desertification. You have to stop and reverse land degradation, which can happen by planting more trees, by trying to bring in the deforestation back. And we have to also halt the biodiversity loss. The animals, the species of animals, the species of insects, which are slowly dying and becoming extinct, we need to control that. Very importantly, many countries, that is including India, have tried a lot to save a lot of species of animals to go extinct, but we are still a long way away. Then 16 says promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions on all levels. The lesser said than done. We need to focus on building accountable institutions, accountable officers, accountable governments, accountable people, accountable judiciary. Everything has a part to play in the total sustainable development of the world. And the last one, the 17th one, is make partnerships, strengthen the means of implementation, and revitalize global partnerships for sustainable development. Nothing is possible without the partnership of all the people in the world to work together, because the earth belongs to everyone. And because of that, we all need to work towards all these different 17 goals and many more, so that we come to a conclusion, and in 2030 we can look at each other and say, yes, we have done something as a society, as a human, as a race, which we are proud of. Now, just before we go, as an individual, what do we do? Very simple. I have just tried to make it concise in 5 points. Embrace a sustainable lifestyle, right? From conservation of water, conservation of resources, judicious utilization of fossil fuels. Look at the way you are living and see where you can make small changes here and there. Conserve resources such as fuel, water, trees, and other flora and fauna, right? Look around you and see if you can create a kind of an ecosystem, plant more trees, if you can be a part of a afforestation campaign, if you can be a part of a sustainable fuel campaign, if you can be a part of a cycling group, carbon negative actions, try to plant more trees. You can do more carbon negative actions. A country like Bhutan has really went forward, forced itself forward, and it is the only carbon negative country in the world. That means it gives more oxygen to the environment that it takes from the environment, right? So it's a carbon negative country. So we need to work towards carbon negative actions, such as if you can cycle to the market instead of taking your scooty or a bike, if you can drive less car, if you can cook less and consume more raw food, etc., etc. So that will put lesser pressure on the environment. And a very simple example, be considerate. We all know that cleanliness is very important, hygiene is very important, sanitation is very important. But whenever you are washing your clothes, it's very important. You will be surprised that washing your clothes is one such activity which can really save a lot of water. It can save so many things. It can save water. It can also let lesser amounts of chemicals go into the earth, because when you wash with soda, you wash with washing soap, you wash with a lot of chemicals. Make sure that the number of chemicals that you're putting into the earth by washing, it's very easy to wear a t-shirt or a shirt every day, take it out and put it into a machine and wash it. So you are basically spending many liters of water. Along with that, a few liters of chemicals are going into, or few milliliters of chemicals are going into the drain, which are finally settling down in the earth somewhere, getting into the water table and affecting us back. You can reduce that. Just look at why you are washing, how you are washing, and how much you are washing. Why do we need to wash this shirt every day, right? If it can be worn on the next day. I'm just giving a very simple example. The amount of water that you're using when you're going about the daily course, how can you find a process by which you can use less water in your gardening? Can you recycle water in your home? Is your society recycling water? Are you harvesting rainwater? All these small things can really add to the universal sustainability as a whole. You may feel this is very small, yeah. If I'm washing my shirt every day, how much will it affect the world? Imagine 1 billion, 1 trillion shirts being washed every day without a thought, and how much water we consume, right? So this is what sustainability is all about. This is what the sustainability development is all about. This is what sustainability development goals of United Nations are all about. So this was one important thing. Before I close today, I think I am almost at the close of my time. Before I close today, my request to all of you is read more, see more, learn more, go on YouTube, watch many videos, watch discussions on sustainability, go to United Nations Sustainability Development Goals website, learn more and try and understand, and try and bring some necessary changes in your lifestyle. Right? With that, I end today's talk. I hope it was useful, and I hope it can at least try to bring in some basic changes in your day-to-day life and your behavior. All right. Thank you very much, and hope to see you all soon in the next session.